with all that's going on in Syria and now Egypt, how do you think, because people thought that like to protest and to make a revolution will make the government step down, because that's the case in Tunisia and now like what happened in Egypt.
Yes.
But after like now in Egypt it's getting worse, and in Syria it's still going on and nothing is happening.
Yes.
So how do you think, because that's the way, because they're using like there's no democracy in Syria, so people thought that that's the way to make the government go down. So how do you think we can stop, how do you think they can stop like all of this killing with removing the government without America stepping in? Because that's the case in most cases, that America comes in. That's what happened in Iraq when Saddam Hussein and people didn't want him. America came in, killed the president, and then left or started like digging into Iraq to benefit itself.
Yeah.
So how do you think they can solve that without America getting in?
Yeah. Next question. That is a great question. So, first part of that question is it America's job to come in and kill Assad? It wasn't America's job to go in and kill Hussein, but we did. And when we did, we unleashed intercultural conflict that will last a long, long time, that was not understood by Americans at all. And we have created international rules and courts of justice and the UN and security councils to try to deal in a just way with people like Assad and Saddam Hussein. But those take decades to turn into something meaningful. So in the interim, the United States and sometimes Europe is the only military that can go in and make a difference. How should we decide to do that? How should we decide why Hussein, why Gaddafi, and not Assad? The Syrian people, and this, I mean, I know from my own family in Lebanon, this fight's been going on for years, generations. My grandparents came over because of the wars in the Middle East in the 1900s. So how can the Syrian people kick out somebody with superior military and money and very nasty friends? And the answer is they may not. It may not work. And the question then becomes, do we, United States, risk our people's lives to go in to every situation like that? The answer to every situation is easy. The answer is no. One by one, how did we decide to do Gaddafi and not Assad? And I'm no expert in this, but I would answer, Gaddafi had no friends. He was isolated, and Libya was nowhere near as powerful as Syria's friends, mainly Iran. So we hesitate to go into Syria because of the powder keg that is the Syrian-Iran axis and friendship. I'm sure, because I read it, that most of Obama's advisors wanted him to go into Syria. But he chose not to because he felt things weren't going so well in other places where we intervened. So the answer may be, there's not a happy ending.
Can I?
Yeah.
So, like, maybe because I'm an Arab, so I think that way, but since Syria doesn't have as much oil as Iraq and as Libya, is it really the reason that Syria has a lot of friends, more than Libya and more than Iraq? Is that the reason why you actually came in? Because from what I see in Iraq, you got rid of Saddam Hussein, and then you're still going on, and you're still like, you didn't end the war. And from what I think is that you're just like there for oil. And is it the same?
I won't argue with that. We have always been there just for oil. From the days they found oil. The reason we have gone where we've gone in the Middle East is always because of where there's oil. And that is the only good news about the United States discovering it has more oil now than Saudi is that maybe we can ignore the Middle East for a little while and stop going places because they have oil. Syria, not being an oil power, has less importance to the United States, and it always has. From a human rights perspective, it's atrocious, and it always has been. This is the trade-off of being a superpower, is you can't go everywhere, and the reasons you go places are often very offensive. And the reasons we don't go places are even more offensive. We did not intervene in Bosnia, in Kosovo, when people were being raped and genocide was happening right in front of the world. We didn't intervene for years, and then we finally did, and we were able to stop it. So the other problem is we didn't know who we would be helping in Syria. There wasn't one political group that we knew and trusted. And ever since the United States overthrew the government in Cuba, and we got Castro, and we overthrew the government in Iran, and we got Khomeini after the Shah, the unintended consequences of intervention can be huge. And that is why nobody wants to be president for those things, because there's not a right answer. There's not a right answer.
So do you think if Saudi Arabia stopped giving America oil, there will be war?
Well, if the Saudis stop giving us oil, they'd lose a lot of money, so they're not going to do that. And they need us as well, because the Saudi government is a very fragile thing. They also are a minority that's ruling. And all around them, there are people from the Al-Qaeda side who want to get rid of them, and there are people from the democracy movement who want to get rid of them. So they don't want to take many chances, like cutting the United States off. It's very complicated. And if it weren't for the oil, it'd be much simpler. But as they say, if you had enough ifs, you could put Paris in a bottle.